I'm Paul Edwards, author of the Mourners Woods books, and first and foremost, a monster kid. Tonight, I'm watching Frankenstein Unbound from 1990, starring two of the greatest film actors of their generation, Raul Julia and John Hurt. Roger Corman actually came out of directorial retirement to direct this movie. He hadn't directed a movie in over a decade, but he liked the idea of this movie so much that he agreed to come out of retirement from directing just to direct this picture. And it wound up being the last movie that he ever directed. Frankenstein Unbound tells the story of a 21st century scientist, played by John Hurt, who's developing a new weapon, and a side effect of his new energy weapon is that it opens a rift in the space-time continuum, and he is whisked through this time slip into the 19th century, where he almost immediately befriends Dr. Frankenstein and discovers also that the future Mary Shelley, author of the novel Frankenstein, is here in town too. One thing I like about this film is that it inserts our main character mid-story into the well-known story of Frankenstein. It doesn't start us at the beginning. By the time that John Hurt's character arrives on the scene, Dr. Frankenstein, played by Raul Julia, has already created the monster. The monster has already gone on a rampage. It's already killed Dr. Frankenstein's young brother, William. And Justine Moritz is already standing trial for the murder of William, which of course was really committed by the monster. So we're dropped in pretty far into the familiar Frankenstein story, which is something that I like. And of course, John Hurt's character, now that he's part of this timeline, influences the outcome of the events that we're all familiar with, and has to deal with the horrifying results not only of Dr. Frankenstein's creation, but also of his own Frankenstein monster, the time slip phenomenon, which hasn't gone away and is still a menace. I like Frankenstein Unbound. I think this is pretty good. It's not perfect. There are a couple of parts in it that seem a little hokey, but overall, especially because of the performances of Raul Julia and John Hurt, this really is a well-done Frankenstein film. It's not a completely conventional Frankenstein film because of the time travel element, but the parts where they show us the traditional Frankenstein story are very well done. If you're a true monster kid, you might notice a detail in this film that has to do with the Frankenstein monster makeup. There are metal ridges protruding from the temples of the monster's face, and this is actually a callback to a discarded makeup idea that Jack Pierce originally had for the Boris Karloff Frankenstein monster back in 1931. This is a picture of test makeup for Karloff's Frankenstein. This is not the way that they made the monster look in the final 1931 film. But in this test footage, you can see these metal protrusions in the temples of the monster. These have been revived in the Frankenstein Unbound version of the monster, and they are creepy. The entire structure of the monster face looks like something that was built around a metal frame, and it's unnerving. The most horrifying aspect of this movie is actually not anything to do with the monster itself. It's a very realistic scene of a public execution. It's hard to imagine now, but it used to be a common practice for the general public, families, whole families, including kids, to attend public hangings. And this is depicted in the execution of Justine Moritz. It's absolutely something that would have happened back in the day. a public attendance of an execution was usually pretty large, and spectators would be there mocking and ridiculing the person who was being put to death. In this case, of course, we know that Justine Moritz is not guilty of the crime that she's convicted of. But guilty or not guilty, it was not a seemly sight to attend to see a public execution. It certainly wouldn't be something that we would consider civilized now. It's interesting because, sometimes you hear complaints, especially for those of us that like horror films, that we're subjecting ourselves to violence in entertainment, and it's unhealthy how much violence we subject ourselves to in entertainment. Well, our entertainment is all make-believe. In past generations, people used to go to see real-life homicides, real-life killings of human beings in executions as entertainment. So the fact that we watch a little fake blood in a movie where we know that the actors went home fine and safe at the end of the day is not nearly so bad by comparison. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise on that count. I recommend Frankenstein Unbound. If you're a Frankenstein completist, you absolutely have to see it. If you're a Roger Corman fan, you probably will want to see it, if only for the fact that it was the final movie that he ever directed. If you're a fan of vintage horror and classic monsters, check out my book series, the Mourners Woods books. I'm self-published on Amazon. My name again is Paul Edwards. My books are the Mourners Woods books. Thanks for letting me talk to you about Frankenstein Unbound. I'll see you in Mourners Woods.